Welcome, everybody. My name is Pattie Grimm, and I'm a senior leadership development consultant, talent optimizer, team effectiveness expert, and women's advocate. I have more than 30 years' experience in the high-tech industry and senior leadership roles for Microsoft, VMware, Johnson & Johnson. I've run my own sales and business transformation company for many, many years. And I'm someone I've dedicated my life to empowering women and girls the best they could be in any endeavor they choose. So this is a new conference keynote I'm rehearsing today. So I'd love your feedback. So this is version 2, and I'm going to kick it off by starting with asking you to please close your eyes. And I want you to imagine you've been planning this perfect, ideal resort location to an all-inclusive resort for you and your family. And the day has finally come. You get everybody in the car. They've all gone to the bathroom. You get to the airport after a little bit of traffic. You're going through the airport and you get stopped in TSA because you're a random stop, and they pull all of your stuff out of your suitcase, including your underwear. You have to shove it all back in. You run to the gate. You make it to the plane, all out of breath. And as you walk in, the pilot is sitting there because the door is open. He says, "Thanks for flying American Airlines. I hope you have a wonderful trip." You say, "Yes, we're going to have a wonderful trip. We're going to this incredible all-inclusive resort with the whole family. We just can't wait to get there." And as you walk down the aisle, you notice an elderly couple who seem to be very, very much in love. And you continue to walk down that aisle and you eventually get to your seat. You take your seat, you sit next to someone, you introduce yourself and say, "What do you do?" And the person responds, "Oh, I'm CEO of a tech company." So now I want you to open your eyes. I want you to ask yourself, did you imagine the pilot, was a black man? Probably not. Did you notice that the couple was an elderly gay couple that was celebrating their 25th year wedding anniversary at the same resort you're going to be at? Did you happen to notice that the woman, who's my friend Janet, was the CEO of a tech company? Probably not. You see, we all have blind spots, but what are they and how do we overcome them? How do we get past these unconscious biases that are holding all of us back? It's because our brain takes in 11 million pieces of data at any given time, but we can only handle maybe 40 of those. So our brain has a way of filtering out and helping us to make quick decisions. Sometimes our quick decisions are right and accurate, and sometimes they're wrong and completely inaccurate, especially when it comes to people. What's interesting is in the 1970s, when you looked at most orchestras, they were 100% all white men. All white men. My friend who was in the legislature in the state of California, she was a senator, described the men on the Hill as pale, stale, and male. No diversity, no equity, no inclusion, no women, no people of color. A lot of this presentation not only applies to women, it also applies to people of color and other marginalized groups. But then the symphony started doing something different. They said we need to get more diversity and inclusion into our symphony. We need different kinds of talents. So they started doing blind auditions behind a screen. So as the judges were evaluating the people that invited to the orchestra, they were behind a screen and they could only hear the beautiful music and not see what the person looked like, how tall they were, how short they were, what color they were they men or women, were they possibly even disabled, but had the ability to play an instrument. It's very much like the show The Voice, that I'm sure you've seen or seen commercials of, where the stars, instead of being able to see the contestants who are singing beautiful songs, they're behind these big red chairs so they can't peek. And yet I love to see the show when they turn around and are completely shocked and in awe when they realize that the person singing that classic Aretha Franklin song, Respect, was an 8-year-old boy. They also didn't happen to notice, because they couldn't see and they couldn't let their unconscious bias get in the way of how somebody looked or prejudge them, that the person singing that wonderful country song was a 75-year-old woman. So we need to think about things differently and take those blinders off. Because what happens is we have these unconscious biases that do help us make some good decisions and judgments, but also prevent us from really seeing the full picture and being able to hear and find the talent of the person behind it. Because we're excluding people by ignoring our biases. It's a lack of diversity in leadership. The number one most important thing you need to thrive in today's business environment and not just survive is innovation. My second book I'm working on is trying to prove a theory that innovation is led by inclusion. When you have inclusion, you have more innovation, you have more diversity, you have different ways of looking things. Instead of assuming you know better or using insulting jokes and being closed-minded and making assumptions, we want to make sure we're looking at things from a different point of view, valuing the opinions of others, getting rid of old habits and talking over people, or maybe not even involving people in some decisions. And why does this matter to you and your business? Do you know that 75% of people who were surveyed by the Gallup organization of thousands of people said at one time at work they felt excluded and that they just didn't fit in? 64% of employees reported feeling disconnected from the mission, vision, values of the company. The number one reason for the Great Recession, or Great Resignation and quiet quitting, was that people feel disconnected from the company's mission, vision, values, and don't see where they fit in. They don't see a place for themselves, so it's very easy to leave. Only 23% of employees worldwide and in the US are fully engaged at work in their workplace. And why does that matter? Employee engagement has been directly connected to profitability, performance, and business results. When people aren't doing their job as well as they could, they're not doing things like looking at the line outside their window, say they're a bank teller, they're looking outside the window, or they're a cashier, or whatever role they play, and they won't delay their lunch by 5 minutes to help the other customers in line. They'll close their window and walk away. They're not giving it all, their extra extraordinary effort to make a difference and innovate and help your company thrive and grow. 77% of employees reported doing the bare minimum of what's called quiet quitting at least several days during the week. And the biggest factor is that the unfair treatment, feeling like I'm not being treated equally, is the biggest cause of turnover in the tech industry and impacting the businesses by $16 billion. Now, this unconscious bias is also known as implicit bias. It refers to unconscious forms of discrimination, and many times we don't even realize we're discriminating against somebody based on their race, gender, sexuality, authenticity, ability, age, etc. It's a predictable pattern of mental errors where we judge someone without seeing the full potential that person could bring, and it really prevents us from reaching our goals. And microaggression is something that's been talked about quite a bit in the press and in the research studies lately. A microaggression is a subtle, unintentional form of prejudice or discrimination. Rather than overtly declaring racism or sexism or ageism or whatever ism it is, it takes the shape of an offhanded comment, an inadvertent painful joke or a pointed insult. For example, a person might comment that an Asian American speaks English perfectly, but they don't realize that person was born and raised in San Francisco. Another might ask an American Indian or an Indian student where they're from because they look different, they sound different, they have a different sound, their name is spelled differently. It can be also things like a woman crosses the street for safety when she sees an African man walking towards her. But these microaggressions, these unconscious biases are unfair, they're hidden, it's implicit, it's preferring certain people, it's a reaction, and it's not respectful, and it doesn't really value the whole individual. So we need to think differently. If we're going to break this glass ceiling, if we're going to fix the broken career rungs on a career ladder to success for women and people of color, which I'll continue to say, we have to make those unconscious biases conscious. We need to drive our awareness and ask ourselves, is that true? Is it really true that certain people have different abilities over others? Carl Jung was a very famous psychiatrist, psychologist, who actually was one of the founding people around the idea that people are born with a certain set of preferences, right? But he also said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will dictate your life and you'll call it fate. So I want to take this to a personal level. I want to get this to something where it's not just in your head. You're hearing me talk and sharing these statistics and these ideas, but I want to get it down to the heart of where it really matters and where people could make judgments and differences and uncover those unconscious biases. Have you ever felt excluded? Any time in your life. It might have been when you were in kindergarten and you wanted to play with a certain group and they wouldn't let you in. It might have been when you were in high school or middle school or junior high, whatever you call it, and you tried to sit at the table with the cool kids and they just blocked you out. It might have been in the college when you tried to get into a sorority, fraternity, or a certain club and they wouldn't let you in. We've all felt excluded at some time in our life. We've been the last person picked for that softball or volleyball team. Some of us have always have felt excluded at some time in our life. So I want to ask you a couple of questions. One is, what did they do to exclude you? How did you feel? How did that impact on you? Did you find yourself drawing in and giving less and quietly quitting? How did you feel? What did that do to impact your performance? And why would you pass that feeling on to anybody else? Think about it. An MRI scan, we've learned so much from neuroscience leadership, and they've actually done MRI scans that show when someone feels excluded or feels social pain of being shut out, the pain is the same as a physical threat or pain, like having a heart attack or being attacked, like the fight-flight syndrome. The pain is that deep. The business case for all of this, and there's hundreds of studies, Gallup, LinkedIn, McKinsey, um, IBM, Forbes, all kinds of studies now that clearly show and illustrate financially that research shows that diversity and inclusion enhances economic growth, increases innovation, increases productivity, promotes higher decisions and higher quality decisions, and helps companies be more successful and more innovative. McKinsey found that companies that had more diverse leadership teams outperformed their competitors by 15 to 35%, depending on the industry. Wouldn't you like to add 35% to your bottom line? Think about it. Diverse companies are more likely to produce product innovations faster. In today's world, post-COVID, we've seen our entire business models change. In many cases, we're dealing with hybrid or remote work, or people are starting to come back to work, and we're dealing with that transition back to work. We have a multi-generational workforce. We have up to 4 to 5 generations working. And what the younger generations expect and what we expect is different than what we did in the past when the command and control manager tells people do worked. It doesn't work anymore. It hasn't worked for decades because we need that product innovation and we need it faster. And racial and gender diverse groups make better decisions with faster implementation. And the other thing, in today's business world, sameness is a kiss of death. If you all look the same, think the same, went to the same university, you probably make the same decisions, and you're not getting the diverse opinions that many times might reflect your customers and what they need and want. So sameness is a kiss of death and does not lead to innovation. More competition today, higher customer demands, higher employee demands. Employees are more stressed out than ever. Employee health and wellness is at its lowest. We have to find a way to manage and lead differently, and that includes including people of color and women and people that are different from us in our decision making in our business. So when I did my book, I did 3 years of research, interviews 3,950 plus leaders. I lost count after a while, trust me. And I asked people, what makes a great woman leader? Is there a difference between a great man and woman leader? If so, what? And what are the barriers we face? And what are the things that we are many times dealing with in the workplace today? Women are still underpaid, underserved, and underrepresented in healthcare, in government, in industry. White women, Caucasian women make around 81 to 83 cents where a man makes $1. And African American women make less, Asian make less, and Hispanics is as low as 56%. More women were laid off in COVID. They were slower to be hired back. And many times they were hired back at a lower level position and a lower pay just to get their foot in the door. 1 in 4 women is considering leaving the workforce or downsizing their career. It started during COVID and it's still continuing. And can you really afford to lose 25% of your team? The unconscious biases and microaggressions are there, and in some cases have gotten worse. And many women still do suffer from imposter syndrome and perfectionism. So I will continue to do hundreds and thousands of workshops on how to be a strong woman leader, how to move from perfectionism to peak performance, how to get a seat at the table that doesn't suck, which is my latest presentation I did for the WIT Network. We also have this challenge of this likability factor and what's called the double bind paradox. So the likability factor actually comes out of a Harvard study that has been done multiple times. It was probably done again about 5 years ago, where the Harvard students We're given two case studies. The facts, every word in the case study was exactly the same except the name. One was Heidi and one was Howard. When the students were asked to evaluate the leadership style of those two individuals, Howard is described as a strategic thinker, a team builder, a collaborator, respected, trusted. Heidi was described as selfish, aggressive, not assertive, bossy, not a team player, and not a good communicator. But the facts were exactly the same. When we ask young girls, little girls, to draw a picture of a leader, 99.9% of the time they draw a picture of a man. The double bind paradox is that when men rise up the ranks, they gain credibility and respect. When women rise up the ranks, they become suspect and lose credibility and have to earn that back and work even harder to get the respect that they deserve. So there's just a little bit of a difference. Imagine, how many times have you heard somebody say, I wonder how she got that job? You don't hear that about the men. And what part of my research, when I was doing the research, I was looking for what are the characteristics of strong men and women leaders, and is there a difference? And what's interesting is some of the characteristics were the same, but they're just in a different order. The men that were described as great leaders, they were strategic thinkers. They were driving for result. They were great communicators and got their message across. They were trusted and respected. They were task focused and visionary. And they were quick decision makers, which we'll come back to a little bit later around the Women's Power Code. Women were described as compassionate and trusted, good communicators, inspiring, not necessarily visionary, had integrity, but not necessarily respected. They were strategic thinkers, but where the man was more task focused, women were generally described as more customer and employee focused, and they may tend to make collaborative decisions. And that's a picture of my book up in the corner. One of the women I interviewed for my book was Colonel Deb Lewis. Colonel Deb Lewis retired as a colonel in the U.S. Army and commanded troops all over the world, but she was also in the first class of women to graduate from West Point. Traditionally, West Point had been 100% male and usually white male university for the Army called West Point. She was in the first class, so she didn't have a glass ceiling. She had a concrete bunker to overcome. The drill sergeant intentionally withheld information from the women and were much harder on them in many cases, but she not only survived, she thrived and had a 30-year career, and now happily lives in Hawaii with her husband, who retired from the military as well. And when I asked her, is there a difference between a man and a woman leader? She said, women see around the corners. Now, I'm a research geek, so I'm going to dive in and ask, well, what do you mean by that? She said, let me give you a scenario and why many of the high level generals and high level officials in the military came to watch my team meetings. It's because men tend to come into a meeting, for example, just one example, with a agenda, a meeting agenda, 5 or 6 topics on the agenda. They get through the meeting on time, and at the end they fist bump and they high five. Great meeting, let's go conquer the world, let's go implement that decision we all just agreed to. But the man didn't notice that 2 people were completely disengaged the entire meeting, and 2 people not only disagreed with the decision, but walked outside the room and do what I call hall talk and said, that was the dumbest decision ever. There's no way that will work. I will not support it. So the decision was dead on arrival. The woman will notice and say, John, it looks like you've got something on your mind, or Jim or Sally or Tom or Judy, would you like to share some of your insights, ideas? So they see around the corners. They just see things differently. The other main difference between men and women leaders comes from the book, The Power Code. So Katie Kay and another author who I can't remember, I'll look up her name after this, I promise, wrote a book called The Confidence Code about 5 or 6 years ago. Their latest book out about 2 years ago is called The Power Code, More Joy, Less Ego, Maximum Impact for Women and Everyone. So this isn't saying we don't need women leaders. We need men and women leaders. We need leaders from different backgrounds to have that creativity and innovation. We all need to thrive. But there's 3 fundamental ways that things are different with women and men, and why we need a new women's power code. Men, from their research, what they found is men describe power or define power as having power over someone or something. I have $100 million budget. I have $100,000 budget, and I manage 10 people, or I manage 50 people, or 100 people. I have power over something. I'm above them. Women define power as having power with. someone or something. Many times a woman gets congratulated for a great project and she'll say, my team did it, or my team and I did it. So that power with versus power over is one of the differentiators. And men tend to decide alone. They might gather some insights and information, people, but they tend to make the decision. This is the decision that I've made. Women tend to collaborate to make decisions. And I'll give you an example. I was asked to coach two VPs that reported into a senior VP. And it was John and Judy. And he asked me to coach him. He said, I'm having some real struggles with Judy because she doesn't seem to make decisions very fast. She seems to take a lot of time and gather a lot of input for decisions. And so I said, well, give me an example. He said, well, 6 months ago, we had something really blow up in our business and we were losing customers. Our productivity was down. We couldn't get the product out of the door. So I called Judy and Jim into my office and said, I need a solution, and I need a solution ASAP. But when you say ASAP, that's a danger net, because your ASAP is different than my ASAP. Yours is tomorrow, mine's a week from tomorrow. So Jim went off to his office, maybe called a few people, did a little research, comes up with the decision, walks back in the senior VP's office and said, here's the decision we need to make. And the senior VP says, looks good to me. Judy went back to her office, called in her team, said, here's the situation. We have to come up with a solution by tomorrow morning at 10. I want all your ideas. I want all your creative thoughts. We'll go through each idea. We'll do a pro-con analysis. We'll pick one and we'll actually work on our implementation plan. So Judy walks back into Senior VP's office at 10 o'clock on the next day. And he says, really great insights, but I've already decided to go with Jim's decision because he brought it to me last night. The project failed. The project failed miserably because there was no buy-in and commitment. Because when it comes to a project like that, a mission critical project, there's a timeline from the problem to solution. And what's variable in there is the upfront part. If the man decides alone, he makes a quick decision, but implementation takes much longer because there's no buy-in, there's no diverse ideas, there's no innovation, and nobody's been consulted on it. So implementation is very difficult, and many times these projects fail. Where the woman does the collaboration might take 24 hours, a week or two longer, but the implementation is faster because she's already gathered consensus and opinions. We also have to look at, when we come up with a new woman's power code, how we reward people. Men tend to be rewarded based on potential or promise. He has the potential to be a great leader. Where the woman, on the other hand, is promoted based on proof, evidence, performance over time. So if she's an individual contributor, maybe she's in that role for 2 years, goes and gets her master's degree and a couple of extra certificates, does some extra special projects, she's now proven herself to be a team lead. That may take another couple of years to prove herself at that level, to then move to the senior manager level and the VP level and the EVP level. So it's just a different way of looking at things, and it just takes more time. So we need to change the system, not the woman. As I said, I've delivered thousands of workshops, webinars, conferences, keynotes, workshops to thousands and thousands and thousands of women, and told them, based on my research, we need to be strong and play to our strengths, because when we play to our strengths, we're more productive, we perform better, we have less stress. We've been training women to lean in, to stand up and be assertive. But when we stand up and be assertive, many times we're labeled as bossy, aggressive, and bitchy. Trust me, I've been described as a bitchy broad. I've been described as pushy many times, and I simply say thank you. I'm just trying to get my voice heard. I've trained thousands of women, hundreds of thousands of women, to be more valuable, vocal, and visible. Go get those accreditations you need. Go get that master's degree. Go get that degree. Go get the accreditation experience you need, and use your voice to be more visible. We will, and I will continue to fight for women's rights to parity, equity, and inclusion till my last breath. And we need to continue to build the skill set for women, but it's not enough. Women will never break the glass ceiling without the assistance of fixing the systems that are broken, that are keeping the glass ceiling in place and breaking all of those career rungs. We will continue to have those issues. So we need a new power code. This is my proposed, and if this was a workshop, we would workshop this for the new Women's Power Code, the 7 principles. Now, there's something magical about the number 7. There's 7 days of the week. There's 7 wonders of the world. There's 7 deadly sins. There's 7 colors in the rainbow. And it all, actually, the research goes back to biblical times around the number 7. So I came up with the 7. And the picture up in the window in the corner is of the women and the countries that handled the COVID crisis the best. They had the lowest death rate, the lowest hospitalization. They recovered the fastest. They had the least problems. And you know what? They were all run by women. So in order to have this women's power code, and like I said, also applies to people of color and other marginalized groups, thou shalt rise and lift everyone up, regardless of their race, their sex, their sexual orientation, their diversity, their abilities, their age. We need to be sure we rise everyone up so we all grow and thrive together. We all still need to be strong and play to our strengths and stand up for who we are, what we believe in, and stand out by being more valuable, visible, and vocal. We still need to do that. But there shall be authentic, genuine, and vulnerable. The number one things employees wanted to hear from leaders during COVID was they wanted to be authentic, genuine, and vulnerable, and say simple things like, this has been really hard on me too, because I've been locked in my house with my family for 2 years, just like you. I can identify with how stressful things are. Thou shalt honor, respect, and support everyone, regardless of how they look or what their preferences might be, so they can bring their unique magic to work every day. I interviewed an incredible woman named Deb, who was the CEO of a marketing company. And she had a series of values. One of them I loved, which was really kind of funny. They had, we are all rock stars. And so every month they had a giant cardboard cutout of The Rock. And if you were the rock star of the month, you got that cutout to put in your cubicle. The other one was bring your unique magic to work every day. Because to her, it didn't matter if you had tattoos and piercings, if you had purple hair, green hair, orange hair, if you were shaved, if you were bald. If you brought your magic to work every day and you brought your full self, your full head, heart, and guts to work every day, that's why you were valuable, and bring that magic to work every day. What's interesting about this company is marketing agencies tend to be very cutthroat, and they tend to want to cut out the competition, but they also tend to cut out each other within the organization. And one of the accounts they got was the Aflac account, because the CEO and the board of the Aflac came to her company, along with several other companies, asking for unique ideas, saying, hey, we got this problem. We have this company called Aflac with a funny name. Nobody knows what it is, and nobody knows what we do. So they came up with the Aflac duck. Now, I'm going to say there's probably not anybody in this room or on this meeting, especially if you live in the United States, that has not heard of Aflac or seen the Aflac duck, because they made fun of the funny name by saying it's Aflac. And I also would be willing to bet that everybody knows what they do and how they can help people keep their money in their pay when they're sick or on disability for a long period of time. The other interesting fact is the African American gentleman in the commercials used to be their security guard. So thou shalt find a mentor and allies to lift us up and all of us up, and be a mentor to others. Do reverse mentoring. If you've got a young person on your team, have them come in and teach you how to use TikTok. Tell them how to use Snapchat, whatever it happens to be, but create mentorships and allyships within the program. The difference between a mentor and an ally: a mentor is someone you go to advice, almost like a coach, a little conscious on your shoulder that tells you, you go to advice, should I do this or that, and they give you advice, and maybe they give you some skills and they recommend some things for you. An ally is someone who not only supports and promote you when you're in the room, they support and promote you when you're not in the room by saying she's ready for an international assignment, which is what my mentor did for me when I went to Singapore for 3 years to run the customer partner experience team in Asia for 3 years. Best experience of my life. Thou shalt support, not sabotage. Thou shalt collaborate and not compete. Remember, the competition is the people outside the walls of your office, outside of your company, outside of your venue. It is the people on the competition are the people that are trying to take your market share away. It's not the person in the office or department next door. Thou shalt leave the world a better place today, tomorrow, and forever. So when we have this new call for Women's Power Code, we're seeking an environment, a culture, an organization where we value authenticity over assimilation and fitting in. I remember when I went to Microsoft, or I went to work for Microsoft, and I was in the team for about a month, maybe 2 months, and I was in one of the big team meetings. And my mentor, Oliver Roll, wonderful British woman, British gentleman who I love to this day, called me into his office after one of these meetings, and he looked at me and goes, "What the are you doing, Grimm?" I said, and I kind of taken back. We have a great relationship, so anyway, he talked to me like that. What the hell are you doing? I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "You're not yourself." I said, "Well, I'm trying to fit in. I was trying to fit in with the culture and the organization." He said, "I didn't hire you to fit in. I've hired you to be authentic, not the same. I need your diverse opinion. We need to value collaboration over competition. Remember, the competition is the people outside your doors, not the people in the room or the department next door. We need to focus on collaborating and all pulling together in the same direction. We need to redefine success models. We need to find success based on outcomes, not on the number of hours I sit in a chair in my office. We need to redefine success about what power looks like and how it's used, and how women can be more assertive and confident and strong and be respected for who they are. We need a systematic support of life integration. You look at all the research, stress levels manager stress levels at one of the highest. Stress levels are at an all-time high, and people are trying to balance work and life. But it's been more stressful since COVID, and it's going to increase. So we got to figure out, how do we integrate life and support and put that in a systematic approach. And we need to be challenging biases and change the systems. We may want to throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to some of our old, outdated policies. Marshall Goldsmith said, "What got you here won't get you there." There's another saying that says, "If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got, and that won't get you where you need to go." So we need a new leadership model of success. I love the simplicity of Microsoft's current leadership model, which is about create clarity, generate energy, act as a role model. That's their 3 leadership principles. I happen to have 5. That's okay. It's all on one hand. Number 1 job for leaders: create clarity and direction. Where are we going? What is our mission? What is our vision? What are our values, and how are we going to work together? And create that clarity and direction over and over again. Every conference meeting, every all hands meeting, every quarterly input meeting, every webinar, every email should create clarity, direction, and help people so that you can generate energy for them. We need compassion, and we need more emotional intelligence than regular intelligence. As you know, this research from Michael Goldman about emotional intelligence, which is knowing thyself, what are your strengths, knowing others, and being able to work with others, to have style flexibility, have a flexible leadership style based on the individual you're leading, to be able to deal with complex, diverse, crazy, the world we're dealing in right now, and to be able to engage and have a relationship with people on a professional level. We need collaboration and inclusion. Inclusion, from my research, is key to innovation. It'll bring you the best solutions and the best opportunities to move forward as an organization. Great leadership takes courage. It's hard to lead today, and it takes calculated risk taking. Many of the companies that thrived through COVID did things they'd never done before, but they were able to do it because they had the courage and they were taking calculated risks. One of the classic examples of leadership is that leadership and courage is the ability to move the organization in the right direction in the face of adversity. And the classic example is President Johnson when he was getting ready to run for president after he'd taken over for President Kennedy. And he was approached by every Southern conservative representative, congressman, senator, and was told in individual and group meetings, if you continue to fight for equal rights for all, you will never be elected president. He didn't even choose to run, but he chose to fight for the rights for everybody to have equal treatment. And finally, having commitment to the customers, your partners, your employees, and connecting people together. Connect the dots between business strategy, business results, and talent, which is something I specialize in. We have to go beyond the check boxes and posting things on your website that look pretty. A checkbox activity is like in the state of California, a law was passed that any company, I believe with 8 or more employees, had to offer sexual harassment and diversity, equity, and inclusion training to everybody, I think at least once a year or once every couple of years. That was a checkbox, right? We put people on webinars, we put them into a conference room, we did the training, they signed the roster. Oh, we have proof if somebody comes back and said they were sexually harassed or they're not being treated equally. We did the training. It was a checkbox. Or my favorite is many companies, you go to their website, they have a beautiful page about their values and their mission and their vision. And they have a beautiful page about diversity, equity, inclusion, but the policies are in complete disalignment from that. Or they're still using regular interviewing instead of using a blind interview process like the first screening of candidates. There's no name of the university they went to, and there's very little information in terms of that you can tell it's a person of color, a woman, or someone from outside the country. So we have to audit and align our HR policies and procedures and all of our policies, our promotion policies, how we promote people, how we recognize people in meetings for doing a good job. Are they the rock star and they get the rock in their office for that month or that quarter? Communicate, community, clarity and direction, clarity and direction. Host all hands quarterly meetings to share your company results. Record it, post it out to everybody in every memo, in every email, in every communication, in every meeting. Reinforce what you're trying to accomplish. I remember one of my favorites about companies that were sort of checking the box and putting it on their website was Exxon, who, as a result of their bad financial decisions, caused many millions of people to lose their homes, lose their 401k and their entire retirement. And yet one of their values was integrity. I walked into a company one day and they had this beautiful window, and etched on the window were their 5 values. One of them had a typo, and nobody noticed that it was wrong. It was just there. They kind of glanced at it as they walked by. Create cross-functional shared goals and hold people accountable for helping the whole organization succeed and not just their individual department. Put in OKRs that start from the top and cascade down to every level of the organization, aligned to that mission, vision, and values. Support and fund employee resource groups to help people get the skills they need to be successful, and assign a respected executive sponsor. If you put together an employee resource group and you assign someone that's not respected, you're dead in the water. And also be sure you fund it. I've worked with a couple of groups where they put somebody in charge of improving employee engagement or putting together employee resource groups or doing all these wonderful things that look good on paper, but they have no money. So they end up doing things like breakfast meetings, brown bag lunches, happy hours. It doesn't move the dial. It doesn't improve anything for anybody other than maybe make people feel good. A few people feel good. Establish a formal mentor and sponsorship program so that people have the opportunities to grow and learn from the more senior people. Now, I mentioned a little bit about my company. I do want to close on these last couple of slides. What my company does is we help you through a 3-step approach. We combine science-backed artificial intelligence and science-backed for over 70 years, 363 validated studies. We use science, software, and knowledge transfer. What makes us different is we help you connect the dots between your business strategy, results, and talent using science and data that has been proven to create great leaders, build rockstar inclusive teams, and fast track your business result. But we also transfer the knowledge. So we want to train your internal advocates and your internal people to carry on and be able to scale this across your entire company. Here's my contact information. I am a certified predictive index partner. We provide organizations with a clear path to deliver results. We deliver results. Unlike traditional approaches, we use data and science, but we also back that up with aligning people and strategy and business to the end of the talents. There's a listing of some of the services that I offer. 2 of the programs I offer specifically for women is a program called Inspire Her, which is one-on-one or small group consulting over 5 to 6 sessions over, say, 6 months. and also an Empower Leader Her program, which is a comprehensive leadership development program for women to help them break the glass ceiling and continue to kick that glass and get rid of those things that are holding us back. So we need to change the system, not the woman or the person. And we need to be sure that we break this glass ceiling, fix the broken career lungs, so we can all continue to thrive and grow. Thank you and have a great day.